Well, welcome back to Ronnie's vlog. I'm just about to get started for a ride out. I think you'll notice that I've got a new key ring on my keys, the pink one. It says this bitch rides her own. Well, it was a present from my son for Mother's Day. I don't know how I feel about him calling me a bitch, but it is quite nice. And also, I don't know if you can see from the camera, but I do also have some lovely new pink boots, pink bike boots, which are very lovely. And they were a present for Mother's Day off my husband, so I got well and truly spoiled. Now today I'm heading off to Derwent Reservoir, the one in Concert, not the one in Derbyshire. There are actually two, I didn't know that. I'm going to be heading on the way there, the more scenic route via Concert, going through quite a few villages. The reason I'm doing that is because there's nice bendy country roads and some lovely hills, and it's going to be a very challenging but beautiful ride. And then on the way back, I'm going to go on the dual carriageway around the back, into the back of Newcastle and home that way. So just coming up now on your screens should be two maps. So this first map shows the journey to Derwent Reservoir through Concert and round the back end. It's 25 miles, and this next map shows the journey back heading along the A69, which is 32 miles. As we're showing footage of Derwent Reservoir later on, I'll also be talking a bit more about me and talking about my health and my inflammatory bowel disease and my ileostomy, and basically my history of how I got my ileostomy. It kind of saved my life, so even though it can be a nuisance, you've seen before on all the gear I have to wear, I am thankful that I can still ride a bike. I probably wouldn't be alive if it wasn't for my ileostomy, but I will tell you more about that in a bit. Now my first stop before actually heading off is going to be the garage for a top up, because I'm currently on half a tank. I'm going to see how much it's going to cost me to get to Derwent and back. When I'm on half a tank, normally if I put £3 in, that takes me back to a full tank. So all filled up with a full tank, and we're ready to go. Now we're just leaving the garage. I decided I'm going to cut out quite a large proportion of the journey and skip straight to Newcastle Quayside. I know you've seen Newcastle Quayside plenty of times, you saw it in the last episode, but I never get sick of the tiny bridge and the quayside. So here we are back at the top of Newcastle Quayside, and we'll be heading down and along the quayside, along and then up to Scotswood Road. Now it's an absolutely beautiful day, and when I was getting ready to leave I was undecided on whether to wear my winter gear, which I'm currently wearing, or wear my summer gear. This time of year it's very difficult to decide that. I wore my summer jacket a couple of weeks back when it was lovely, but by the time I got home I was freezing cold. Now the gear I got is outer jacket and outer trousers, which I wear on top of my normal clothes. They are pink and black. My husband bought them for me. He has a thing about buying me pink gear. I think he likes everybody to know that I'm a girl on a bike. I don't know why. Maybe he thinks people will be nicer to me. I think it just makes me more of a target. But my gear is very, especially my winter gear, it's very warm, very comfortable and very safe. It's got a lot of padding at various places, so hopefully if I come off I won't be so badly injured. My summer gear is a leather jacket with enforced bits in it, just like my jacket, but it's a lot thinner and is leather, and some trousers which are just normal material, kind of jean type jeans, kind of a cross between jeans and leggings, but a little bit thicker than normal jeans, with some padding in as well. Probably not as safe as the trousers I'm wearing because that is quite a few extra layers, but I am looking forward to getting back into my summer gear, which is all black and white, which fits perfectly well with the toon from the Black and White Army. Obviously my husband got my gear. I bought my son his gear. He kind of isn't too happy that I make him wear full gear, and says that when I was his age I wasn't exactly wearing gear either, but I do want him to stay safe, especially as he's learning. It's kind of a case of do as I say, not as I did. I got his gear from ARN Race Leathers. I'm really impressed with the gear that we got him. He loves it. He loves all the extra pockets. It's a lot like my gear, but I think it's slightly better quality than mine. I actually prefer his, and I think next time when I get some more gear, I'm going to get some more gear from ARN Race Leathers. But at the moment I've got my lovely pink gear and my black and white summer gear. But I do occasionally look through their gear and think, I'm going to put that on my wish list and send it to my husband, because I know that he always treats me to stuff when I hint. So a bit of a question, do you prefer leather or textile? Which do you wear? Where do you get your gear from? I would love to see pictures, or just so I know what sort of different things people wear and where they get them from. Now we're just continuing along the Tyne, and very soon going to be heading up the bank up towards Scotswood Road. There was a bank earlier on which I'm not comfortable taking. It's very steep and has traffic lights at the top, and I know I told you last week that I'm a bit better at hill starts on a bike and I'm okay with them. That hill is really, really steep and I hated it in the car, so if I can avoid it I will. And this is also a route that I've told my son to go for when he's going to college, because it's a nice lovely little route. So in a few moments we're going to be heading up the bank to Scotswood Road and then heading along to Redheugh Bridge. Well, we're just going along Scotswood Road and about ready to go onto the Red Youth Bridge and across the Tyne into Gateshead. Now I wanted to keep this next bit in when I come off the bridge. Now a lot of people have made comments when I've shown this footage on TikTok. I am going faster than what it looks like. I'm not actually pushing the bike. I'm currently doing 40 just as we approach the Red Youth Bridge, but for some reason the camera makes it look slower. So just going off, staying in the left lane because I'm going to be taking the slip road off in a moment. And it's quite a tight bend, so I kind of didn't have the best position, was a little bit further over to the end to try and get a nice good corner. And there's white lines on the right to me, which basically mean not to go in that area. I wasn't exactly looking, but as you see, this car decided to come flying down my right side. I didn't see it till the last minute. Now when it overtook, I was doing 29. I did take the ramp off slower than normal. It was 40 mile limit, but I'm just building my speed back up. But now I'm back up to 40 for this stretch. So I don't know what you think of that, but I thought the driver was very irresponsible. He was in my blind spot a lot of the time. If I'd corrected my space on the road, I would have went straight into him. And he shouldn't really have been going into that white area anyway, especially that hashed area. You're not supposed to go into it. I think he was just in too much of a hurry, and he just couldn't wait for a learner who was going around a very tight bend. Now I have had some insults telling me to get off the road and I shouldn't be on the road because apparently I took that corner too slow, but the camera does make it look slower than what I was actually doing, and it was very scary having that car go flying past me the way it did. But us bikers normally have to put up with bad car drivers, and when we complain we get a lot of abuse. So I'm not surprised that I got a lot of abuse for posting that on TikTok. So tell me any stories of any four-wheeled idiots in your vicinity over your time riding. But anyway, we're going to move away from riding. I said I was going to talk about me and my health. So just as we're kind of going down these beautiful little country roads and through little villages and some nice bendy roads and some hills, I'll tell you a bit more about me as you have this beautiful scenery to watch while you listen. I have inflammatory bowel disease, which is an autoimmune disease. So basically my body thinks that certain cells and organs, etc. are foreign and tries to kill them like it would a virus, etc. Now, it all started around the age of 13, but doctors kept saying that my problems were IBS or period related. Even when I was admitted to hospital, they just dealt with the problem that I was admitted for example, blockages, but then kept insisting that it was IBS. So I learned to manage it by limiting what I ate and when I ate and using painkillers. I guess sometimes overusing painkillers. I was very sporty, so a lot of times I relied on supplements or energy drinks to get by without eating. There was times when I was accused of having an eating disorder because of this. I think mainly around about size 4. When I got married in 2001, when I was 21, I was a size 6. So, but it wasn't until 2001 when, after I got married and I fell pregnant with my son, that things started to get a lot worse. And it kind of scared me a little bit, but after he was born it kind of went back to what it was before. It kind of returned to my normal. So I kind of put it to the back of my head I had a few scary bouts of severe attacks over the next couple of years, but I just dealt with them and moved on. It became part of my life. It was always there. I just dealt with it and moved on. Now in 2007 I became pregnant with my daughter. At 7 months pregnant, I began to lose a lot of blood from my rear end. I had always had some bleeding from the rear end, but it was always put down to being piles or something stupid. But this was extreme amounts of blood, as in ridiculously amounts of blood. I also had severe diarrhea, and the pain after eating was unbearable. It was like having razor blades pass through. It felt like my insides were being teared up. Now obviously I was used to having pain after eating, but this was something else. So I went to the GP and was just given the same excuses. IBS, pregnancy, for being pregnant, piles, basically continued nobody listening. Nobody ever listened. I've spoken to many others who have had similar stories of doctors just not listening and being misdiagnosed with IBS. I think whenever you've got an issue, they just automatically jump to IBS and just label you with it without actually looking. So anyway, after a couple of weeks, I was rushed into A&E after losing 5 pints of blood. And it was then that I was finally diagnosed with IBD. Now, I was kept in for the remainder of the pregnancy, as they were planning on doing a C-section and surgery to remove my colon when my daughter was big enough. I think that was planned for about 33, 34 weeks. But she had different ideas. She came at 32 weeks. And basically I had no idea I was in labour until her head appeared. So that might give some sort of idea of the pain that I was in from the IBD, especially the women out there who've had childbirth. Hopefully that will give you an idea of what my normal pain was like. Now, after I had my daughter, my symptoms eased a little bit. It went back to almost normal, but with some more severe bouts, just like after my son. I was put on steroids, and they tried drug after drug to try and control my symptoms. Some of them drugs were very similar to chemo drugs, very not nice, made my hair fall out. Steroids kind of made me have steroid fat face. I was constantly just drained, ill, zombie, and still a lot of the time chained to a toilet, basically. I couldn't go anywhere if there wasn't a toilet. Still having a lot of urgency, still having a lot of bleeding, and sometimes it got very embarrassing. And I know we make jokes about it, but it's really bad when you can't control your bowels and you're out in public. It can be very humiliating. I also had to have regular blood and iron transplants, which meant a lot of time back and forward into hospital. In the end, the only option remaining was to remove my large bowel, something which I thought was going to be the end of my life, thinking that living with a bag would be hell. But in fact, it was the opposite. 6 weeks later, after surgery, removing my large bowel and getting a bag, I was back canoeing, hiking, and doing all the crazy stuff that I used to love. I fought for so long to not have the surgery, thinking that it would ruin my life, but actually it gave me my life back. The IBD had stolen quite a lot. So, a year later, we're up to 2011. I was still having some issues with my rear end. They had left the rectum and anus in place. It wasn't being used, but they left it there just in case I wanted a J pouch or any other surgery to get rid of the bag. But I kept having issues with those bits remaining. The IBD decided to just attack those areas a lot stronger. So I still had a lot of bleeding, though no diarrhea, because there was nothing coming down that way. It was diverted out through my stomach. It kind of spoilt the life that I was getting back. I was enjoying having a life with no pain. I was enjoying being able to eat. without having any pain. I kind of got a bit, I put on a lot of weight because I just basically ate and ate and ate. I started enjoying eating for the first time in my life, which isn't very good for your weight, really. So I had surgery to remove the rectum and anus and get my bottom sewn up. I became a Barbie doll. Basically getting rid of the giant pain in my backside, literally. Now, yeah, I felt great. It took a while to recover from that surgery, but it was well worth it. So I'm going to stop here for a little bit and start talking about the ride. You're probably sick about hearing from me. I will continue on what happened next in a little bit. So we're going along some lovely roads with some potholes. The surface isn't exactly smooth, it's a bit gritty. It was a bit difficult at times, and there was some quite steep hills and some tight bends, but you can't complain with this beautiful scenery. It was really lovely riding down these roads, and was really a challenge and really made me work hard. And I think going on these rides makes me a better rider. I think all experience is good, so I like the challenge, and I really loved this ride. This hill going down that we're going down now was a bit scary. I don't think it looks as steep on the footage as it actually was when you're on the bike. It really did feel quite scary going down this hill. There are a lot of hills in Gateshead. Medhamsley Bank is a hill that I know quite well because I used to do the Great North Ride, which was 30 miles on a push bike around the area, and part of the track was going up Medhamsley Bank, which is very, very steep. So I was exhausted by the time we got to the top of Medhamsley Bank. I also had to go up Medhamsley Bank on my very first CBT. So, as I said earlier on, I think it was the last episode of doing my CBT in Gateshead, I think it's actually quite good to do a CBT or your driving test on really difficult roads, because I think it gives you a lot more experience and makes you a better rider and a better driver. So I've just entered a 30 stretch. It doesn't last long. It soon goes back up to national speed limit. Now, a lot of these roads are 70, some are 40, some are 50. I still get quite a lot of cars overtaking me when on some of the bends and some of the hills. Basically, there was times when I was a little bit cautious, or was going a little bit slower than what normally would. Basically, this is the first time I've been down these roads, so I didn't even know the roads, which I think also doesn't help. So, I don't know, maybe a lot of people will be complaining that I've gone too slow and, like earlier on, say I shouldn't be riding. But I am faster than some riders, and I think it's all about experience, basically. With the 30 zone and in national speed limit, going uphill a little bit, but building up some speed and really just enjoying letting the throttle out. Now this next bit is quite interesting. It was a lovely little bridge. But obviously you don't get a very good look at it. It bends right round, but just as you bend round it goes onto a single lane. So the oncoming traffic is in the same lane as you coming head on. So I went round really slow, was a bit nervous about doing doing this. There's quite a few bridges like this around. There's some that I would really love to go to, I think. So heading down some more quieter roads than the one we've been on. Little farm roads. I did get told before leaving to watch out for suicidal sheep, which I thought was quite amusing. But there's some lovely little stretches like this one here. But I got halfway up, you'll see in a minute that I come to a stop. And the reason for that is just to the right there was a farm and a horse, and the rider was just coming out of the farm and heading towards me. So I did the nice thing of stopping and waiting for the horse to go past so that he didn't get startled or scared by my engine. So now that the horse is passed, I'm starting the engine and continuing on with the rest of the journey. Now fast forward a little bit to an even smaller road which runs around the reservoir. There's quite a few cars parked on the grass verge as we go along. Because I'm on a bike, and although there was some cars going along this road, it is really narrow. But on a bike it's not as bad as it is in a car. It's actually really nice. It's a bit gravelly, took a lot of concentration and had to get really slow, but it was a lovely road going round, and I just followed it round until I found a really nice little quiet spot with a beautiful view. At this point I slowed right down, almost to a stop, as there was a couple ahead of me walking. They stepped over onto the grass verges to let me pass. I went past really slowly. When I parked up a bit further ahead, which you'll see in a bit, when this couple came past me, we got talking. The man was a biker. His wife had only ever ridden pillion. She'd never been really interested in riding. She had occasionally thought about it, but never thought that she could actually handle a bike herself. But when she saw Ronnie, she had a good look and was saying that it was a type of bike that she thinks that she could ride. So hopefully that's planted a seed and we've got another lady biker in the future. They were a really nice couple. I meet some really nice people when I'm out and about. Most people are really nice, although obviously there are some who will always hate bikers. Before parking up, I decided to turn the bike around so that it would be facing the direction that I will be going on the way back. One of the reasons is because of the way the road slants down. I'm always very careful with where and how I park because my bike's only got a side stand. Because I'm small, sometimes if I'm on a bit of a camber and I don't manage to understand the road quite well, I feel like I'm going to fall off when I try to put my feet down. It has been twice when I've got off the bike and put the side stand down and went to get off, and the side stand wasn't down properly, or the bike was on a bit of a slant, and I ended up having the bike either completely fall on top of me or almost cause me to lose balance, which knocks my confidence a little bit. Busby, my RXS, had a centre stand, which although was a nightmare to get on and off sometimes, it was much better. I knew what I was doing in that regard. So I don't know whether your bikes have got centre stands or side stands, and if you're small like me, how do you manage with different road surfaces, and whether you have the same issues as me or not. So just a few pictures that I took while I'd stopped. So a picture of the lake and a couple of pictures of Ronnie with the lake behind, and an awful picture of me with very messy bike hair, looking rather awful, but a picture to prove that I'd managed it. I was very proud of managing to get all this way on some very difficult roads. I had a nice drink and bite to eat, which I had in my bag on the back of the bike, then got ready to head back. So getting ready to leave to go back along the little track around the reservoir and along one of the roads taking me up to the A68. Instead of turning right, turning left, continue along the A68 and then we'll be joining the A69, which is dual carriageway, and following that all the way round the back of Newcastle and then down onto the coast road home. So I'll be showing some of that journey. So while we're travelling, I'll continue my story. Obviously we left in 2011. After that, obviously I was getting better, I was becoming fitter, but I'd been off work for so long that trying to get back into my field of marine biology and environmental education was very difficult because I had such large gaps in my history. So in the end, I took the decision to take a job working in care, and doing that, it was a very rewarding job, but it was a very hard job as well. I worked at a place, I'm not going to name the place, but worked there for 5 years, and it just kept getting worse and worse as I worked there. They were ignoring moving and handling rules, they were always short-staffed, it was very difficult. So 2016 I ended up getting a parastomal hernia, so I got a hernia around my stoma. So basically my stomach looked like a hill with a cherry on the top. At first it wasn't too painful, it was just a little bit uncomfortable. I went to my GP, who put me on fit note on light duties for work, but my work ignored those fit notes, and it didn't matter how many times the doctor issued fit notes and even wrote a letter to the manager to complain. I was just constantly kept being put under pressure. So a couple of weeks passed, about a month, just over a month, and I went back. One of the times that I was back at the GP, he noticed how it was getting a lot worse, a lot quicker than what it normally would. So I got rushed through to an appointment for my surgeon, who was also not happy with the situation and decided that we desperately needed surgery to fix the hernia, because at this point it was getting really bad. So in December 2017 I had a hernia repair and was off work for 6 weeks, and then was supposed to be going back on phased return and light duties, but work, like a leopard, never changes its spots, and got back and got thrown into it. Was bullied quite a bit, of basically being told if you don't like it, leave. I couldn't do that because I also had a family to help support, and then my husband works and he always supported me, and I kind of wanted to really contribute, because basically he took the brunt end of the stick for the majority of our marriage, because a lot of the time I was ill and a lot of the time he was having to look after me. So I gave in and I'd done things that I shouldn't. I was bullied into doing work that I wasn't ready to do. So at the beginning of 2018, we're actually almost coming to the anniversary because it was April 2018 when I got rushed into A&E. Basically my bowel had twisted and got stuck in the mesh. So I had emergency surgery to untwist the small bowel that was twisted into the mesh. They removed that, they sorted that, thought it was sorted. A week later, I was rushed back into surgery again because they had missed a bit. There was still some bowel that was twisted. It had got stuck and it began to die. So they went back in and they removed that. At the same time, they decided to move my stoma over to the other side of my body, to the left instead of the right, because there was so much damage on my left side. They thought it was a lot easier to do that. So they did that. At this point, I was put on TPN feed, so it was kind of a feed into my neck. It was kind of a white stuff. It kind of looked like PVCU glue, you know, the glue that you had at primary school, the type that you put on your fingers and would look like peeled skin. So basically I was having something like that fed into my neck. I wasn't eating. I was actually on that for 7 weeks. So, but a week on from the second surgery, I was still not well and was deteriorating quite a lot. So it wasn't very good. I got rushed back into surgery again, and they realised that I had sepsis and a lot of the muscle was dying because the mesh had caused a lot of problems. So they ended up having to remove all of the mesh and remove quite a lot of the muscle that was infected and damaged. And basically I woke up and had quite a lot of holes on my stomach, which had to heal from the outside in, so were being packed quite a bit. I had tubes sticking out everywhere. I was in ICU for quite a while. A lot of people thought I was going to die. I think it was a lot more scarier for people who were watching. I've always been a fighter and I'm used to hospital, so it wasn't as bad for me as it was for people who were having to watch me go through all this. So eventually after 7 weeks I was allowed to start eating again and ended up going home, but then had to continue having nurses coming every day to pack my wounds, and it basically took nearly a year before I was able to really feel as if I was almost normal. But the thing is, I will never be normal again. I have constant pain. My stomach is a complete mess. I have to constantly wear support 24/7, especially even more so on a bike. I get tired really easily. I get a lot of pain, and beginning to have other problems with fistulas and holes appearing where they shouldn't be and stuff. So it's not nice, but at least I'm alive, and at least I can still ride. And that almost dying, and it basically gave me the push I needed to actually enjoy life and do all the things that I promised I would do. So now I never take anything for granted. So just approaching the roundabout to join the A69. It's a dual carriageway that takes you all the way into Newcastle. Now I always say that Ronnie can't really go faster than 55, But on this stretch of road I actually managed to get her up to 63, mainly because it's kind of downhill and the wind was behind me. I keep looking down at my speedometer every now and again, and you can see it's generally around 52, 53, 54, but it does get up to 61 and then up to 63 at one point. I'm sure I look down and hopefully you'll get to see that I'm telling the truth, that I did actually manage to get 63 out of this little girl. Obviously I wasn't going to keep pushing her and having her at really high speeds, because I didn't want to overrun the engine and cause some problems, so the majority of the time I was basically at 52, 53. So just approaching the slip road off the A69 and heading onto the coast road, which will then take me all the way back home. Now the slip road coming off is another strange and difficult slip road. It's not a normal slip road, it's under the bridge and the road separates into a few different lanes. At one point just past this is where it becomes an M road. Luckily I can just manage to get off this slip road here without hitting the motorway, but just after the slip road off it becomes motorway for a stretch of only about one slip road worth, and then reaches the Tyne Bridge, which we've been at before. But it is also a very tight bend as well as you go round. I'm hoping to do it a few more times to really get used to doing it. Now I'm cutting out a large portion of the coast road because you've seen me go up and down it quite a few times, and you're probably sick of my voice by now. I think this is one of the longest episodes I've done. I'm just going to, in a minute, fast forward to just before I get home and coming off the slip road of the coast road before turning to go home. Now I'm going to turn the sound back on in a moment. There's something that sometimes happens quite a lot after I've been riding for a long time, especially down dual carriageways when I've got the throttle full on. My hand kind of gets a bit stuck around the throttle, so instead of kind of letting go of the throttle when I drop gear like normal, my hand kind of freezes in that position, so you get a bit of an over revving type sound, and the bike just reacts against me. So if you listen out, you can just hear me do that in a moment. I wonder if anybody else has that problem as well. So just let me know. I think sometimes when I'm riding I take my hand off the throttle just to twiddle around with my fingers just to try and get the circulation going so that I don't end up in that situation. I guess experience will help, I guess. I'm almost home, so I'm going to sign off now because I've been talking to you for quite a while now, about 45 minutes, so I'm signing off. But if you haven't already, please subscribe, please like and please share, and I will see you again soon.